Hey, what's up? This is Pierre and Chuck from Simple Plan. This is going to be the track by track of our debut album, No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls. It came out in 2002. Let's do it. I'd Do Anything. The first track off No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls is one of the first songs that we wrote together as a band. Right, Chuck?
I would say it's probably the first fully formed song that we did with when you joined the band, which was really, I mean, in the extremely early days. It's what a good kickoff to the album, right?
Yeah, and it's a song that took a few different shapes. We originally wrote the song. We were in Montreal and we recorded it in this little studio that we had. A buddy of ours was a producer and he let us record there for a while. So we recorded this version of I'd Do Anything. And it's a very special song. It really did a lot for us because in the early days, Chuck was keeping a little relationship with Mark from Blink-182 because of our previous band. We were friends in the past. And I remember you used to send those demos that we made. So we made some demos in this little studio and Chuck would send them to Mark Hoppus. And then I remember we'd be by the computer and be like, okay, I'm going to send it now. I'm going to send it now and send. And we'd wait like, I hope he answers. I hope he answers. So it was really, really cool to get him involved. But Chuck, help me out here.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember, we would wait at Warped Tour and I even drove to Albany to kind of meet up with him and show him where we were at with the band. And because he knew us from our previous band, Reset. And I will always remember one day, I got this email back from Mark and he was at the MTV Award, just about to play probably the biggest show of all, I mean, that you could do as a rock band at the time, the MTV Awards. And the day before he wrote back after we sent him the new demo and he said, man, like, what a great demo. This right now, I'd Do Anything is my favorite song. I've been playing it like 25 times in a row in my hotel room, trying to get ready for the show. And I mean, you can imagine just how insane that was for us. We're this young band trying to come up and trying to, get signed and trying to have an impact. And literally probably our favorite artist at the time is taking time the day before the MTV Awards to tell us how he loves this song. And he said, like, whatever I can do to help out, whatever I can do to, try to get you guys out there, just let me know. And, let's be honest, that did not fall on deaf ears. And we were like, oh my God, he loves this song. Is there a way maybe that he would jump on it and do a feature? And sure enough, that little dream that we had as a band, Mark made it come true.
That really was a great way for us to be put on the map, so to speak. Our record came out, it was featuring Mark Hoppus, and then we even got him to be in the video. At the time, we were on tour with them on the Pop Disaster Tour with Green Day, Blink-182, and we asked Mark if we could stop in Cleveland and do a little piece of a video that he could be in. It was Cleveland, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, so most of the video was shot in Toronto, and this little part in the middle was shot in Cleveland right before that show that night in Cleveland. Yes, correct.
Yeah. So he came out and was part of the video, and that was a huge part of how I think Simple Plan was noticed out there on MTV and by the fans. It was so we really owe a lot to Mark Hoppus for kicking off our career properly, and really a huge debt of gratitude towards him and the band. They've always been so nice. And as Chuck was saying, at the time and still today, one of my favorite bands of all time, and Enema the State will forever be one of my favorite records of all time. And to have Mark be part of our first song on our first album was really just a dream come true, and it was amazing. So thank you, Mark.
There you go. There's something just special and magical just to that song. We had the song, Jeff and Sebastian and me, and just to go back, because it is quite special. So we had this little instrumental thing that we were playing around in this intro and whatever, but no melodies, no lyrics. And I remember you came out, Pierre, to see us for the first time rehearse, and I'm actually in the room where this all happened. Like, I'm in my parents' basement right now. And this is where Pierre heard the song for the first time. This is where we used to jam all the time, and was our little headquarters. And you heard the song, you took it, I think you probably had it on a tape or something.
Yeah, I did a little cassette recording of it. At the time, I was working for my dad. I was driving a little truck, and I would drive twice a week. I would drive like 12, 14 hours a day and deliver some packages. No, it wasn't illegal. It sounds illegal, but it wasn't illegal. but delivering some packages for a medical company, and I'm just sitting in the truck for 14 hours a day. So I recorded the jam session that we had on a little tape, and I played it back in the truck while I was driving, and I wrote the chorus for "I'd Do Anything." So I came back to the guys, and I was like, I think I have an idea. It'd be "I'd do anything just to hold you in my arms," and that was basically kind of the reason why I think all of us decided, like, yeah, this is going to be, we should pursue this band. It's going to go well, you know.
And now this is the song that pretty much, I mean, the last 3 or 4 years, I would say 5 years, this is the song that we usually open the show with. And it's like, it's literally the song that started it all. It's the reason why there's a band, because we kind of got together on this song. So there's something, and then the Mark thing happened. And so there's just something kind of special about that one.
The worst day ever to me really kind of resonates what Simple Plan is, you know what I mean? Because it's a song that's the lyrically, it's kind of depressing. It's kind of like, oh, I'm having a horrible time. However, it's juxtaposed with really poppy, happy, and uplifting music. And I think that that was also one of the first songs we wrote. I believe it was in our first demos. It just feels like it kind of created the sound of what Simple Plan is. It's a message of like, things are difficult. I'm going through a tough time, but I'm going to be okay. And the music is kind of uplifting, and I love it. And I remember one of the things about that song that I remember is when we played a show in Toronto. I think it was like one of those Edge Fest shows or something like that. Very early beginning, we only had a little demo that we were passing out for free at the time to a lot of people. I remember there's a part of the song where the chorus kind of drops down and it's just the vocals. And that was the first time that we did that song, and I didn't sing. I think I kind of forgot to sing. And the crowd sang, and I feel like I'm living the worst day over and over again. And the whole crowd sang. And I was like, how do they know these lyrics? I was like, this is crazy. We don't have an album released yet. We've been passing out demos for the last 6 months, and clearly it's working. And it's still kind of like burned into my mind, that show. I remember where we were. I remember what I was wearing. And I was like, damn, these people love our band. This is so cool. So that was a really cool moment for me.
Yeah, that's kind of how when we started to feel like, oh, you know what? Maybe there is a chance this is going to work out and people are going to like this band and come to our shows and all that. And I feel like the song was kind of like us writing about our jobs that we had to have to be able to be in a band. Like we were, like we had to pay for demos, and we were trying to, ship our demos everywhere, and it was expensive. And so I think, Pierre was working in a restaurant, and Jeff had some kind of, I forget what he was doing, where I was working in like a music store, and I was writing for a music paper, and we all had these jobs where that's really not what we wanted to do. And it just felt like all we had in our minds, the only goal we had was to try to be in a band. So like every day that we were not in the band doing this full time was like the worst day ever. And and I think obviously for a lot of people out there, kind of like it became a little bit of an anthem, for crappy jobs and not doing exactly what you wish you were doing in life, and being young and having these kind of like these summer jobs that are not the best. And so it became like a staple in our shows. It was up tempo and everything. And I remember back in the day, Pierre, I don't know if you remember this, but there was no FaceTime back then. And we actually wrote some part of that song on the phone, like on the old school phone. Like we were like, hey, what about this part? And like you would sing and play guitar, like, what about this lyric? And we actually came up with lots of it like on an old school telephone, which goes to show it's 20 years. It's been a few years.
Yeah, You Don't Mean Anything to Me is kind of like, when we were writing these songs, we were about 19, 20 years old and just coming out of high school, and kind of having to we're in a band. We're quitting school. We're working day jobs, and a lot of people were like, what are you guys doing? You get a lot of people that don't believe in what you're doing, and we had to write some songs that kind of made us feel like, what, all those people out there, doesn't matter what you say. You don't mean anything to me. I know what I want to do. And that's one of those songs. I like it because it's high energy. It's one of the more up-tempo songs of the record. And always a fun song to play live. And really, it's got a cool, it's got a cool little vibe to it. I remember that was one where I think we kind of channeled a little bit of Elvis Costello in that one, like the what's that? It's from Watching the Detectives or whatever that record's called. And it goes, and it sounds like it's got an influence from that old Elvis Costello stuff that Arnold Lanny was our producer at the time. He's like, you should listen to all this stuff. Listen to T-Rex, listen to Elvis Costello, listen to the Beach Boys and all that stuff. And we're like, okay, cool. And that was one that was kind of inspired by that.
Yeah, I think we have to credit him a bit in terms of the influence in the music, because we were coming in like pretty much all we knew was punk rock bands from California and Bad Religion and 10 Foot Pole and No Use for a Name and Lagwagon and you know, all these bands that we had, you know, grown up on. And we also knew like some of the most current like alternative bands at the time, like Weezer and Foo Fighters. And he really kind of pushed us to expand our horizons a little bit. Obviously, we knew some of the classic, like the Beatles and Beach Boys and all that, but there was a bunch of bands that, like Kier mentioned, that maybe we were not super aware of or that we had not listened to as much. And he made us sit down and listen to those. And I think that was definitely like the result of knowing that music that was amazing, that we discovered like, wow, holy, like this is great. And we can maybe inject some of that flavor into what we do. And it came out great. And it was obviously great to have Joel on it as well. We met these guys. We became aware of Good Charlotte because I remember one person at the record label said, there's this band that you should know. They're great. They're like you guys. They're you know, same style and they're hardworking and they're good people. And we tried to sign them, but we couldn't sign them. So I guess we signed you is what they were saying. But and then they came to Montreal and we went to the show. I think they were playing with MXPX, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
and
we hung out with Metropolis.
Yeah, so we hung out with them. We you know, we got to know them a little bit. And then we're like, you know what? Like, you guys have so much in common with us. We love your first record. Let's try to collaborate. And we ended up doing this song with them. We crossed the border. We were in Toronto and we crossed the border into Buffalo. They were on tour in Buffalo. And we went to the studio and did the part with them. And yeah, it was really cool. I mean, to have Good Charlotte and Blink on your debut album was, you know, a nice statement to make.
To this day, I think we could have put him a little louder in the mix.
Yes, I agree.
He didn't have a lot of time in the studio, so he just sang along to my vocal. And our producer Arnold was the one that mixed it. And at the end, I was like, "Is that me or is that him? I can't hear it." So, but thank you, Joel. It was awesome to have you on the record.
We're gonna have to do one more again where we hear him.
Where we actually hear him. Yeah.
I
think we went in there wanting him to do the bridge and or a verse or something, but he ended up just singing along to the chorus, and then we put in the mix. But our voices are pretty similar, so it's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, I'm Just a Kid was the song. I remember one of the first songs we wrote together as a band, and we felt like, wow, we might have a hit on our hands. It just sounds like a song that could be a hit, you know. I know it was inspired by no doubt I'm Just a Girl, and we figured, you know, we can't be that, so how about I'm Just a Kid, and just the whole idea of, you know, you feel like even though you're growing up, you're in your late adolescence, you feel like an adult, but you know that, you know, deep down inside, I feel like, you know, all these problems I'm going through, I feel like I'm just a kid and life is a nightmare. And it was an awesome song to kick off with. It did pretty well in Canada and Japan. But it didn't really do as well as we thought it would. You know, we thought it was going to be a big hit. The record label put a bunch of money behind the music video, and we were all excited about it. But it didn't really kick off. It did, like I said, in Canada did pretty well, and in Japan. But everywhere else, it kind of flopped, and especially in the U.S. So a bit of a disappointment. But even though it didn't really do that well, it immediately connected with our fan base. And whenever we'd play shows, it was a song that we had to play, that people were into. We knew that our fans would request it, and we still play it every night at every show. And then, of course, 20 years later, it became a hit on TikTok, which proves us right. We knew it was it had that hit material. But yeah, it finally became, after 20 years, it kind of connected super organically on TikTok, and it's kind of had a big old revival. The streaming numbers have doubled since then. So it's kind of bizarre, but kind of awesome to have a song that stuck around and still is kind of like doing things, you know. But it's a song that I love. It's a signature song. It's actually a song I think that defines Simple Plan in a lot of ways. A lot of people, when they think of Simple Plan, they think I'm just a kid. And shooting the video was amazing. That was like one of the most surreal experiences we ever had. It was a 2-day shoot. It was in LA. We had just finished the record, and it was our first experience shooting a real budget video. And I remember vividly pulling up in the vans at this high school somewhere in LA. There was like trailers. There was like a makeup trailer. There was a wardrobe trailer. There was a trailer for the band. There was catering. There was people everywhere. There was cables and cameras and people holding lights and doing various things. And it was just, you're like, what is someone shooting a movie over here? And we shot there for 2 days. On the second day, I got food poisoning, which made the video a little bit difficult to shoot. But it was an awesome time. It really felt like, to me, it felt like we had made it. It felt like we have a record deal in America for a band of Canadians. We're shooting this music video in Los Angeles, and there's tons of people here, and they're telling us, okay, guys, we're ready for you here. Yeah, band coming on set now, and we're like, what the hell is going on? And it was,
and we had movie stars in the music video, which was
that's right,
because it was linked to a movie called The New Guy, which, let's be honest, it didn't win any Oscars or anything. But the one thing it did for Simple Plan is that it, first of all, got us some star power in our first music video, which was amazing. And on top of that, they ended up paying for most of the video, which was crazy. Like, we got so lucky. Like this soundtrack, at the time, soundtracks were huge, and I guess the label cut a deal where they, like, that the label who put out the movie soundtrack paid for the music video. So I think that's why we got all this stuff here, just because it was just, so it was quite remarkable. And just to kind of reinforce what you just said about the gut feeling that we had when we wrote that song. Like, I remember we finished it, and literally the next day we were like, we need to demo this song and send it out to everyone. And we spent like an entire day and an entire night. I think we finished at like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. And we had that burned CD, and we're like, this is going to change our life, this one song. And we really had that belief in that song, that it would be important and special for the band. And like, we sent it out everywhere. And I think, again, it kind of, we were right. Maybe it didn't become the blockbuster hit, but it certainly did a lot for our band. And it defined the band in a lot of ways. I think it defined who we are, and it's a song that we will always keep for towards the end of the show. It's one of the big hitters, and people love it. And like I said, the whole TikTok thing was very surreal to think that, somehow, without any of us kind of having anything to do with it at all, it just became a hit on TikTok on its own. And since then, it's been used by so many celebrities, and billions of people have done the I'm Just a Kid challenge, and still doing it. Is it Drew Barrymore did another one recently? Yes, so. And her and like Alicia Silverstone, which were, it's pretty cool for us because we kind of had, I mean, at least I'll speak for myself, but I definitely had some crushes on these ladies when I was younger. So it was pretty cool to see them do that.
I wonder if they know, like, if they know there's a band behind that song, or if they just see it as like, oh, it's that I'm Just a Kid TikTok thing.
Just this TikTok song, right?
Yeah. So track 5, When I'm With You, a little more straightforward. Still a great song, but just more of a straight up love song. And I think, what can I say about When I'm With You? It's a song that I love playing. It's kind of just a song about being in love with someone, right? It's kind of one of those pop punk song you want to jump to. It's about falling in love.
Yeah, it's cool energy. And one of the funny things that Arnold Lanni, the producer of our album, had a band before called Sheriff. And
that's right.
With that band, he had a number one, like literally like a Hot 100 number one song called When I'm With You. So when we brought the song to him, he was like, that's a great title. I'm in. He was like, I love it. This is fantastic. I approve the title. He never really cared about lyrics, but for that one, he was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a
That's
hit
definitely
to me.
on the record. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just fun. And like, it's one of the, I would say we wrote that maybe in the middle of the album, like songwriting process. And I just think you know, like we just kept defining our sound and how we wanted to be as a band, and we just had this clear direction. It was really important for us that we were gonna make a pop punk record, and we wanted to be a pop punk band, and these were all our influences, and this is what we love. And I remember we ended up having a lot of, I wouldn't say like fights, or well, I mean, we had some like, yeah, I would say like some fighting with Arnold, our producer, because he wanted to make the record a bit more diverse and everything, and we just kept saying, oh, you know, like, what are you talking about? It has to be pop punk, and it has to be fast, and it has to have the energy. And I think in the end, that tension created something special that was a bit different than all the other records at the time. You know, whether it's the production or some of the harmonies, or some of the like the approach that we did, the arrangements and all that. So I think it made the record better. But that song was kind of one more attempt at crafting what we wanted to be, like little perfect pop punk nuggets, you know. And yeah, it's still super catchy and still holds up today, I think. Yeah, Meet You There was kind of like more of a ballad kind of vibe, that, and I think we were inspired a bit by a song by U2. I think it was like Beautiful Day or something, with that kind of pulsing, you know, and that beat. Yeah, that kind of famous beat from that song, that drum beat. And we just wanted to have something. We wanted to be a band that, I mean, I think we've always been pretty ambitious as a band, as a songwriter. And for us, it was like, okay, yes, we want to make a pop punk record, and that's important, but we also love tons of other styles of music and stuff. And this one was one where we want to have like all kinds of songs, and songs are maybe a bit more touching and like more emotional. So this one kind of was us trying for that, and it talked about sort of all the people, not that we had lost that many people, but maybe like our grandparents and everything. Like we wanted to kind of reference that and get inspired by those moments that were a bit tougher in our life, when we lost somebody that we loved. And yeah, it was just kind of like a hopeful message of like, hey, I'll meet you there, you know, like wherever happens, one day we'll be reunited, and we'll be able to be together again. And so it was a bit more sentimental and touching. And I think that it really resonated with a lot of people that had to experience loss in their own lives. And we met a lot of fans that, for example, got tattoos of those lyrics or that song title, because it kind of symbolized something important for them, whether they lost their parents or a brother or a friend, or so yeah, it became a bit of a special song for the hardcore Simple Plan fans that kind of found a lot of meaning in it.
Yeah, and I do think that that was one of the songs that we were trying to step out of the pop punk box. You know, there was a lot of bands that were doing the pop punk thing, and we kind of, like Chuck was saying, we were a little more ambitious and wanted to, not that they weren't, but we wanted to show the world that there was some depth to Simple Plan, and that song was kind of like the sort of like the introduction to that kind of stuff, which we still have today. Yeah, the song "Addicted," one of the biggest songs off that record that we still play today. I remember, I think we wrote that song in your bedroom. I for some reason I remember sitting down.
Yes.
On your bedroom floor.
Yes.
And kind of working out this whole thing. And we came up with the stutter idea of I'm addicted to you. We were like, oh my God, we've got it. That's it. That's what it needs to be. And we kind of felt like, same as like the I'm Just a Kid moment, we felt like we had something big here. And we kind of wrote the rest of the song around that. That was kind of the initial inspiration, and then wrote the rest around that. And immediately from the label and from us, we all felt like this was going to be an important song. Again, one of those different kind of beats where it's like a 3/4 or 6/8, whatever it is, shuffle or whatever. It's a 3/4, but that kind of like 80s ballady thing.
It was kind of like, I mean, we got inspired, but I think we went out one night and we heard the song. I think it was in a restaurant or a bar or somewhere.
Was it Aerosmith or something, or?
And well, I don't remember what band it was, but it was you and I were together, and we looked at each other. We got like, because at the time, everywhere we went, everything we did, it was all focused on this album and making music, and that's all we would talk about. And everything we heard was like a way to be inspired. And we heard that old school kind of 80s song, and it had that
I think it might have been Aerosmith and some other. It was that and another like boy bandy kind of song. But it was like, I remember I'm thinking of the Aerosmith. I go crazy, crazy,
that might be
for you, babe. It was that, and it was another, like,
or
a
like a
Boyz II
Def
Men
Leppard
song.
or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, maybe Def Leppard, yeah, something like that. But it was one of those songs that we felt like that could be a cool thing. So that combined with the stutter idea, and then we have a funny story. We finished making this record. We're in Toronto. We're recording, and we're almost done. And I think we're in the mixing phase or something like that. We're excited. The label's excited. Our debut album's coming out in a few months. We're just wrapping all this stuff up. And one of the bands that we look up to is a band called Lit. And Lit comes out with their record. And on their record, they have a song that's going to be a single. Their next single, it's called Addicted. And it goes, I'm addicted to you, and you're such a dick to me. And we were devastated. We were like, oh my God, this was one of our biggest songs that we're going to push on the record. We had I'm Just a Kid, we had I'd Do Anything, and we had Addicted. Those are the three songs that I think the label felt like we had something going on. And one of the biggest ones being Addicted, we felt like this is over. This song, we could never put it out. You know, Lit is a huge band at the time. They were just coming off of that My Own Worst Enemy or whatever that song is called. And they were side by side with Blink making these awesome videos. And we were just like, I can't believe this happened. Like, how could this happen to me? You know, we have this great song, and they have the same hook. And our label guy, Andy Karp, our A&R guy who signed us, who's an awesome guy. Shout out to Andy Karp out there. He said, guys, don't get, because we were devastated. We were so upset. And he's like, he said, guys, don't worry about it. He's like, listen, just because a song comes out doesn't mean it's going to be a massive hit. It doesn't mean it's going to get in the way of yours. So let's just let it play out and see what happens. And sure enough, I'm sorry for Lit, but it wasn't a big hit for them. And really, it didn't really make much of an impact at all, other than if you were already a fan. So we felt, you know, with that, the failure of that song, we did feel some relief that we could release our song Addicted, which we then did, of course. And it was huge for us. One of our biggest songs in America. It was a big hit on MTV's TRL. It was the one video that we have on TRL that had to be retired. And when you have a song that's retired, it's because it's on there for so long. It's the top 10 countdown. And people keep voting on it for so long that they say, you know what? This song needs to be retired. It's going to stay here forever. So it was one of our was the one song that was retired from TRL. And to this day, we played every show. And yeah, it's an awesome track.
I think the pond that we had was, no offense, but a little better execution in the you know, in the way, like, so maybe that's somehow we got away with it and we were able to put it out there and people enjoyed. But it really, in a way, it really defined Simple Plan as a fun and kind of tongue-in-cheek and a kind of band that doesn't take itself too seriously, which was interesting because I think we've always had the two sides. We've had that kind of tongue-in-cheek fun side with Addicted and I'd Do Anything. And then, you know, when you get to Meet You There or Perfect and all these other songs that came later in the band history, you had the more serious side, the more like the deeper kind of more meaningful side. But I think that a lot of people that listen to the radio or watch MTV, that's what they saw first, was the more fun side and the more like, you know, pop punk kind of like the tongue-in-cheek and like the whole like being irreverent and all that. So that really came across with that song and that funny lyric. And yeah, I think it defined how people perceive the band in lots of ways, in a really positive way. And you know, it was kind of like, but we were always both, you know. And I think that became like the signature of the band in some ways as well, you know.
We are the mini wheats of pop punk. We have the serious side and the sugary sweet side. Yeah, My Alien is one of the songs that we wrote as well in the beginning. It was one of the first songs that we had. I don't know what we were thinking. I think that was the whole idea of having songs that were tongue-in-cheek. And I think obviously inspired by a bit of Blink-182's Alien songs, like Alien Exists, or Aliens Exist. And I think we just wanted to do something funny, you know, something that was going to be a love song, some make-believe sci-fi love song of this perfect love that you found, but she happens to be from another planet. There might be a hidden meaning in there that the alien isn't really an alien, but is actually a real girl that you just think is impossible to find. But yeah, a tongue-in-cheek song that was I think a fan favorite in the beginning for sure.
Yeah, that song, like I remember, forget exactly what happened, but something not great happened in my life, and I was like, oh man, like, and it literally came to me like the saying. I think I was talking to you or to someone, Pierre, and I remember just saying like, man, God must hate me, and I was like, wait a minute, that's a song. That has to be a song, and it was kind of like a bit controversial. I was like, oh, is it too much? Like, should we say this or not? And is it like gonna offend people or whatever? But and never really ended up being controversial. People just liked it, and it was just a funny way to kind of say, like, obviously the rest of the lyrics are quite, you know, youngish and kind of juvenile a little bit in the verses, but it just kind of talked about being like, we were very young. We were like 18, 19 when we wrote a lot of these songs, or early 20s maybe, and we still felt like teenagers, and some stuff felt quite dramatic at the time, and you know, maybe in hindsight now with the years, you're like, okay, well, obviously it wasn't that big a deal, but at the time, and just like it, I'm sure it is for, you know, teenagers today, like stuff just feels intense and important, and it's the end of the world, and that's really how that kind of whole hook or title came out. It was like, man, like everybody's against me, like God must hate me. And yeah, I think it was kind of a cool, iconic song title, and we always wanted to have a shuffle because we like we like bands like Goldfinger and Green Day. They had these great shuffle, which is kind of like a cool rhythm, and we wanted to have our own version of it, and that one came out, and I think it's really fun to play live. It's a really good groove to play live, and it's fun, and people can jump, and it goes off, you know.
I Won't Be There. Awesome song that we were inspired by Sweet Child O' Mine off that one. I think that I co-wrote that riff with Jeff. I was thinking of like do 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 do. It sounds like that Sweet. I'm mixing them up in my head right now, but they both kind of sound similar. I figured we were such big fans of Guns N' Roses growing up. I figured, why not be inspired by one of the greatest rock riffs of all time, just Sweet Child O' Mine, and just rewrite something that's similar, but that we can make it more pop punk and more Simple Plan like. And that's what inspired the beginning of that song. And but it's just a cool song. It's again a little more straightforward pop punk. It wasn't a song that was necessarily a huge standout on the record, but fans loved it. We played it a lot live, and I still like going back to it. There's a lot of cool things about it, especially the pre-chorus with "I don't wanna hurt you, you don't wanna hurt." Had all those elements of that little rhythm, those punk rock arrangements that we grew up listening to.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest concern with this song was not placing it next to "Meet You There" in the album track listing. Just that, that was actually a concern.
It was a little too contradictory. We needed some space between those two songs.
Yeah, that's why we had to space them out, because it couldn't be like "Meet You There" and then the answer is like "I won't be there." That would have been a little weird. So we had to space them out.
One Day, yeah, that was the song. One Day was Simple Plan stepping out of its pop punk box. Like I said, I think that we had this desire to be pop punk, that we wanted to be like Blink-182, like Green Day, but we also wanted to show something that was a little more out there, a little more different, a little more from the pop world. Maybe there's that one is an acoustic riff in that one, and it just sounds more like a pop punk song that a pop song that reminds you of like Smash Mouth type thing. So that was definitely an effort.
And Sugar Ray, that was a big one that we liked.
Yeah, that's true. Very Sugar Ray. Yeah, very Sugar Ray. Which was the first band we opened up for. But yeah, I think that back in those days in the late '90s, we used to listen to a lot of radio, a lot of like 99 The Buzz in Montreal, and there was a lot of different influences that weren't straight up pop punk. And I think that was the desire for Simple Plan to be more than just a punk band playing in punk shows, because Chuck and I grew up playing in a band for 7 years before that was a skate speed punk, and we knew that it didn't really have any potential to ever go beyond those borders. And I think when we started Simple Plan, we felt like, hey, we like more stuff than just that fast skate punk music. We like stuff that's a little more pop. And One Day was definitely one of those songs that we wanted to showcase that and kind of show to the fans that were listening to us that there will be more to Simple Plan than just the fast, pop punk beats.
And we still had to balance it out with the chorus was heavier and had the distortion and everything, but the verses was a little hint of like having different influences, like you said, and just loving different kinds of music. But we still brought it back to a bit of a heavier feel in the choruses and in the bridge especially, which gets a little bit more like intense musically and everything. But yeah, it was a cool combination.
It was always about blending those styles, not necessarily just showing that we wanted to. I guess we wanted to take the genre and move it forward, in some ways.
So the last song on the album, Perfect, super important song for our band, for this album, for our career, I would say. I think it changed everything for us in lots of ways. And the way that it came about was we were literally trying to get signed. We were trying to, explain to our parents that was really our dream. And we were really serious about it. This wasn't just a hobby. This wasn't just something that we wanted to do on the weekends. This was something that we really believed in. And we were convinced. And I think that's the only way you can really succeed in life is when you're completely convinced that it will happen and that you will achieve whatever goal or objective or dream that you're chasing. And at the time, for us, there was absolutely no alternative. This was going to be our career. This was going to be our lives. And I remember just sitting down and explaining to my parents, like, yeah, we're going to tour and we're going to go to Australia and Japan, and people are going to know us in Europe and in England and in South America, and we're going to tour and play arenas one day. And I remember my parents just, they were extremely supportive. Like I said, like we rehearse in this room that I'm in right now for, I'm almost 10 years, Pierre, maybe even more. This was like, they would drive us everywhere. They would lend us money. Pierre's parents were amazing as well. They did so much for this band. I think they wanted us to do well. I just don't think, at least for my parents, for them, it was a complete impossibility that you could, it wasn't like there was no way that their son, could be in a rock band. Like I was in law school, that was the destiny. That's what my whole family did, and this was what the real job was, and this was the hobby. And then this song was really us trying to explain, like, no, you don't get it. Like I can't do anything else. And I remember telling my parents, like it was after we had a big fight, and I said, look, school's still going to be there in 5 years or 7 years if we don't make it. And I can always go back. But this chance that I have right now, like, because we started to see some momentum, like we had a manager and like we were trying to get signed, and there was some fans already. And it was like, this is not going to be there. If I don't try, I will regret it for the rest of my life. And I think that it was hard for them to understand. And I remember the first inspiration was me running away from home, and well, not running away for real, but just going outside and walking around with my little notebook and starting to scribble some ideas of how I felt after that pretty tough conversation. And then I talked to Pierre about the concept, and we started to put it together.
Yeah. And then when we brought it to Arnold Lanny, our producer in Toronto, I have to give him credit because we always thought the song was going to be the big chorus with the big drums and the big guitars every time. And he was a guy that tried to teach us some lessons about production and different dynamics in song. And he says, we're going to build up this whole verse and pre-chorus, all this energy. And then the chorus, we're just going to go boom and let it go. And we're like, what? No, we got to play it through because you lost it. He's like, no, we're going to drop everything, just the guitar and Pierre singing. And it's going to be, people are going to want to listen to it even more. And we thought, this guy is crazy. And then we tried it and we're like, oh, okay, that's pretty awesome. And of course it became, the part that it became the way the song is now. And there's still things that Arnold taught us back in those days when we were, 19, 20 years old, that I still use today in production, that we still reference when we write songs and do stuff. And that was a huge one. I think it made a big difference on how the song was received because it made it more vulnerable. It made the lyric become a lot more, you focus on the lyric, you don't focus on all the noise around it. And then when you do it with the whole band at the end of the song, then you have that all that energy. So But yeah, it's a great song. It was the biggest song, I think, at the time in America for us. It was the song that really put us on the map as a band that was here to stay, because we had the Addicted, we had I'm Just a Kid, we had I Do Anything, but then we had this song that really connected with fans in a way that was going to connect with them for the rest of their lives. And people to this day still have this song as one of the most important songs to them. We've had stories from fans when we meet them at meet and greets that have told us that, like, you know, my dad and I never had a good relationship, and I played in this song, and since then we've made amends. So it's had a huge impact on our fan base, and it's been a huge part of the song. And since we started playing together, I believe almost 99% of our shows have ended with the song Perfect, and we still do it. It's an epic ending. It's one of the biggest songs for us in many, many ways. And it's kind of kickstarted the career to the next level. So we shot a music video in LA for that song, and very ambitious music video. At the time, we were a band that was doing really well. So if we had some crazy demands, they would usually meet them. And Chuck got together with the music director and came up with this concept of wanting to be playing music on top of a house as it's raining. So they actually built a fake roof in the middle of a street somewhere in LA and had the rain machines going. And then they put that on top, you know, afterwards in post on top of a real house. But the video is awesome. Multiple different rooms that you'd zoom in and out from the house that we're playing on top of. Very iconic video. And it was a cold evening in LA, and we were being rained on, and it was cold. And we're jumping up and down on this fake roof, which, even though it was a fake roof, it was still, you know, 10, 12 feet in the air. Dropping off of that and on the asphalt would have sucked. So it was kind of scary. It was late night. We shot until the early morning. And I remember just freezing the whole time. We had these big old blankets between takes. We'd go by the heaters, because as people don't know this, but LA gets quite cold. It does get cold in the winter. People think it's LA, you know, it must have been warm. No, it gets pretty cold.
Yeah. And you know, it was that whole concept. I remember, I think I was on a flight. We were going to Japan or some long flight. I remember like seeing the whole video kind of play out in my head. And I remember pitching it. I was like, oh, there's no way that it's going to be possible to do it. And how can we, and, you know, sure enough, I think it was Liz Freelander that did the video, and, she nailed it, you know. And I think it's one that, again, it's another thing that people remember, that video when you're all in the rain, and it was kind of epic, you know. And I think we were always about creating these visuals. On that first record, if you look back at all the music videos, they all had something really special. I think we always realized that the visuals were a huge part of this band, and music videos always mattered. And we came up with all these concepts, and we really enjoyed coming up with that, and just thinking really big and trying to make like these little mini movies that would basically just make our song feel, I guess, more powerful in some ways, or be more symbolic or whatever. And that one just came out awesome. And yeah, anyways, it was a pleasure to see it come to life, that whole idea, you know.